So for my project, I'm doing a brief history of beer. Beer actually played a very key role in many of our great advancements throughout human history, starting from our ending our own nomadic ways, helping us get through the plague, even helped us discover germ theory. It's really played a key role in everything. So agriculture was invented about 10,000 years ago, and they were planting barley, barley being a main ingredient of beer. It was once thought that it was for bread, but thanks to chemical testing, scientists are now saying it was likely for beer. Hunter-gatherers would go out, collect barley, and store it in clay pots. These pots would be left out and would eventually fill up with rainwater, and because they didn't have any sort of way of separating them, the natural sugars from the barley would mix with the wild yeast in the air, and that would go through a natural process called ethanol fermentation. To them, it must have appeared, to be spoiled, ruined. Now we have nothing. But since they didn't have anything, they probably had to try it. I would think they probably considered it a gift from the gods. They started growing their own, which led to plow and the wheel, and then dividing ownership led to mathematics and written language. And this kept going all the way through the ancient Egyptians who were building the pyramids. There wasn't a lot of food to go around, so to feed the slaves, they wouldn't give them the good stuff. They would simply give them beer or liquid bread. This is because at the time it was very high in vitamins and very low in alcohol. And they actually also often used it as medicine to treat sickness. Of course, they're probably thinking, they were so stupid back then, but the fact is it actually contained an antibiotic called tetracycline, originally discovered in the late 40s by Alexander Fleming. Scientists found this by finding traces of it in their skeletons. From there, in the Middle Ages, man suffered through the bubonic plague. Basically, if you were to make it past childhood, you were considered extremely lucky. And this was happening because little did they know, dumping harmful wastes, human waste, even rotting meat, is bad for you. But they made it through because in the process of brewing beer, you need to boil water. And by boiling water, that cleans it. So they didn't realize that was doing it, but when they would brew the beer was safe to drink and the water wasn't. Needless to say, most people would turn to beer as their drink of choice. From there, this went on for many centuries, actually. And in 1620, William Bradford, the English separatist, sailed on the Mayflower to Plymouth Rock. It's actually a little-known fact that he was originally headed for Virginia, but needed to make a stop at the closest land for a very important reason, a beer run. Water was still not safe, basically. And more importantly, it would spoil when stored in these giant wooden barrels that they would bring on ships. Beer, however, would last much longer, had alcohol and hops to keep it preserved, and was much safer to bring on their voyage. And this went on for about another 200 years, actually. We all know that beer is a social lubricant, and taverns and bars started appearing because of that. Specifically, the Green Dragon Tavern was home to many greats in our national history, including the Sons of Liberty, the starters of the Tea Party. Basically, they would go to this Green Tavern, they'd have a few drinks, Green Dragon Tavern, have a few drinks, discuss things like oppression and the tyranny of the crown, have a few more drinks, and then, we're throwing it in the Boston Harbor. And that led to the Revolutionary War, during which Francis Scott Key, the man who wrote the Star-Spangled Banner, actually, he took the tune from a well-known British song that was also well-known in America, and it was often used as a sobriety test because of the wide range of notes. Louis Pasteur was a microbiologist. He actually discovered, or he was researching why beer was going bad, why it was spoiling. In this, he actually discovered that beer is in fact alive, and even more importantly, he discovered another organism within beer, bacteria. Bacteria was basically was in the beer. It was attacking the yeast. It was making it go bad. It was making the beer sick, so to speak. So he asked another very important question: if it can make beer sick, what about humans? And thus he invented the germ theory. So have a drink. Wash your hands before having a drink. Then in the early 1900s, lager was a very popular beverage, but it has to be cold in order to brew properly. So breweries would have to invest in sending people out, harvesting ice, and bringing it back. It's a very long and expensive process. So it's not easy for a company to build their business with such restrictions, only being able to brew beer in the wintertime. Basically, funded the research for artificial cold. At the time seemed like science fiction, and the refrigerator was invented. And when you think of American industrialization, you probably think of Henry Ford and the automobile. But it was actually Michael Owens who invented the glass container machine about a decade beforehand. This was, although not only for beer bottles, was first tested with a beer bottle and also ended child labor. And most recently, in 2004, Virgin Galactic was formed. Virgin Galactic is a civilian spacecraft not unlike a cruise ship. You can imagine sitting in zero gravity and drinking a nice beer, but the problem is gas and liquid molecules do not separate, leading to wet burps. And that's my brief history of beer. I hope you enjoyed it. I find it so amazing to think about all the incredible things that beer helped us achieve and what it could achieve in the future. So I hope you think about this next time you crack open a cold one. Thanks.